Let's start our journey to the fascinating world of sensory physiology. Are you ready? Yes. Okay. We would like to make these lectures interactive, and that's why we gave you these little remotes. We will occasionally ask you questions, and we ask you to answer them. We will have answer choices on the screen marked with letters, and to vote for them, yes? Oh, we have one extra one. There will be letters A through E, and you have buttons A through E, so please press them. But also, the remotes, they have this auto power off feature, so they might power off. So you need to press power. If the power light is not on, please press the power button. Is that clear? Yep. Let's practice using them. And I have a question for you. Kittens or puppies? Okay, just... Oh, you see my remote powered off. I was just teaching you, but... Okay, now you can press. And, oh, okay. Okay, so everyone voted. This was really quick. And now let's see the results. I will stop voting. And the award for the best pet in the world goes to... Whoa, puppies! Congratulations, puppies, but kittens are a close second place. Okay, so I hope you got the idea how to use the remotes. Please use them when I ask you to. Sensory physiology. It is about how senses work. As Sarah was just saying, senses are very important because they're the bridge between the outside physical world and our inner world of our consciousness. We study them for a living. We come to the lab every day and study them. And to do that, you really need to think that senses are something really, really special. But are they really special? Well, someone might say, let's take sense of touch as an example. Someone might say, well, is it really so special? Even my smartphone can sense touch. Look, I press on the button and it opens the app, right? So not so special. But I would like to consider how different human touch is. Imagine you're holding Sprinkles here in your hands and petting him. Just think about how many different types of sensations you can get by touching him. You can tell if some parts of his body are soft or hard, some parts are hairy or not, so you can feel texture. What else can you learn? Yes?
You feel the weight of him.
Exactly. Good job. Yes. Just say, don't raise your hand. Just scream.
Vibrations of the cat.
Exactly, vibrations. Good job. Anything else? Some parts may be warm or cold. Then what if it bites you or scratches you? You feel pain, right? So there is a myriad of flavors of sensation that we can perceive. And to me, this is like truly fascinating. It's like a superpower, really. I think that Spider-Man should be jealous about the superpower that we all have. And that's why we would like to learn about how it works. But what do we even mean by this question, how something works? How should we answer that? And let's play a thought experiment. Imagine I'm an alien from a planet called Doorless. Oh, it's easy for you to imagine I'm an alien, okay? I agree. My planet is called Doorless. It's the same as Earth in every respect, but there's one little difference. We just don't have door handles and door latches. We just didn't invent them. So can someone please explain to me how door handles with a latch work? I really want to know. Anyone, please. Okay, you go.
Well, you turn the door handle away.
By the way, I don't know what to turn. I don't know what it's made of.
The little
How did?
thing that's on the door.
Oh, okay. So there's like a, okay, I see that. Okay.
The silver metal thingy on the door.
Okay, cool.
Right?
And you turn.
Pressure on it. Either clockwise or counterclockwise, and you either pull or push.
And why does the door open? What?
It wants it.
Oh, so there's like, oh, there's like a pin that moves inside. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a good. I think I got it. Thank you. Now I'll know it. We will probably introduce door latches on my planet. But now let's analyze how you answer this question. So first you told me about the parts of this thing. And then you told me how they move together. So that's exactly how biologists approach questions and try to explain things in our body. First, we talk about what parts or elements of this thing that we are studying, and we call it the structure. And then we talk about how they fit together and move together to produce the desired result. It's called function. And that's how we will study senses. So let's talk about the structure of senses. When we touch our kitten, what parts of the body are involved? There's hands, and hands are covered with what? Skin. Okay, so skin is one. Then where do you get actually this feeling of touch? Somewhere. Okay, nerves are involved, yes, so the information travels along the nerves. And then the information arrives where?
Your
Brain, yes, exactly. What do we need to hear something? These things. Ears, and also there are nerves, and again it goes to the brain. So these are some of the elements of the senses. But today we have a general lecture, and we will be talking about some general principles. Oh, by the way, I forgot about that. If you're really interested how the door latch works, it's not that straightforward. It's actually pretty complicated. I was amazed. You can look that up. You see there's this gear thingy, and it translates the rotational movement of the handle into the longitudinal movement of the latch. So yeah, look that up. Pretty amazing. We will be talking about general concepts that apply to all the senses. And indeed, we can identify 3 main elements that apply to every sense. And we need this to sense this, everything that exists in the world. And we call these things a stimulus. Have you heard this word? A stimulus. So like one sound will be a stimulus, one object will be a stimulus, and the plural is stimuli. So to sense these stimuli and transform them into perception in our consciousness, we need 3 major elements. The first element is the receptor. As you can guess from the name, it directly detects the stimuli and transmits this information further. Then the information travels along the sensory pathways, which is the second major element. And then the information arrives to the center of senses, which is the third major element. And all these things, as I said, they apply to all of the senses. For example, for the sense of touch, we have touch receptors in the skin. Then the pathways are the nerves from the skin to the brain, and the center is in the brain. Similarly, for hearing, we have hearing receptors in the ears, we have nerves from the ears, and then the center is again in the brain. I would like you to remember this schematic because it will form a map for you so that you can identify how everything fits together. Because in all the following lectures, we will talk about each of these elements for every sense. But this schematic is conceptual, it's abstract. Humans don't really have triangles and arrows, right? What we do have is organs and physiological systems, such as skeletal system, muscular system, nervous system. So now I have a question for you. Please vote for it. The question is, all these things that are involved in senses, to which physiological system do they belong? Please vote. We have 4 options: A, skeletal system; B, muscular system; C, nervous system; D, digestive system. I'll give you 5 more seconds. We need 15. Okay, great job. And let's look at the results. Okay, great. So most of the overwhelming majority chose option C, nervous system, and that's great because that's, of course, correct. It is nervous system. Senses are about information, and nervous system is specialized in receiving, processing, and transmitting information. It consists of brain, spinal cord, nerves. But you want to know more. What if we zoom in on our nervous system? What is it made of on the microscopic level? Let's ask a more general question. What is our body made of if we look at it under the microscope? What are the teeny tiny things in our body? Cells, yes. Good job. Of course, the nervous system is made of cells, but cells of the nervous system have a special name. Can you guess that name for me? Again, let's vote. What is the name of the cells of the nervous system? Is it A, dendrites, B, axons, C, neurites, or D, neurons? Have 10 more seconds. Please vote now. Okay, well, 14, almost everyone answered. let's look at the result. Okay, most of you guessed correctly that it's neurons. Neurons are the cells of the nervous system. Neurons are these funny-looking cells. They have a very small cell body, which is like teeny tiny. If you split your hair in 10 parts, that's how big the diameter of a neuron will be. Then they have a lot of these short processes called dendrites and one long process called axon, which they use to transmit information. And in fact, the nerves that we see with our naked eye in our body, they're just bundles of many axons running together side by side. Neurons like to communicate with other neurons, and they form these long chains, which we call pathways, and they also can form complicated networks. And our brain, for example, is just a giant network of neurons. Do you know how many neurons our brain has? Any guesses?
Like 120 billion.
That's exactly right. Good job. 100 billion neurons. Great. But not all neurons are the same. They can have different shapes. You can see here all these different shapes. Unipolar neurons, it's based on how many of these big processes they have. So unipolar have one, multipolar have many, and so on. They can also play different functions. For example, in the spinal cord, there are sensor neurons, interneurons, motor neurons. And in our brain, there are probably hundreds of types. No one even knows how many. Scientists just don't know how to classify them. It's just a mess there. But for us, the most important is this one, the sensor neuron. Here it is again. And it's important for us because in our conceptual schematic, sensor neurons most often play the role of the receptor. So please remember about the sensor neurons. We will talk about them a lot in this course. It is the central player in our senses. And I also would like you to remember the shape of the sensor neuron. It's called a pseudo-unipolar by shape. It's a complicated word, which means, from Greek, I think, it means fake one process. And the reason they called it like that is because it has a very short one process, which then immediately branches into two. So it's like neither one nor two. So they called it just a fake one process, or pseudo-unipolar. And that's a perfect shape for it to get information on one end and transmit it to the other end. Now let's see how all of this fits together in the human body. So we have our main player of sensor neuron that is located near your spine, which then sends its axon to the skin, where it ends with endings which play the role of touch receptors. And then the other end of the neuron is connected to the neurons in the spinal cord, and then connects to another neuron in the brain, and finally in the brain cortex, where we have the center of the touch. This is using sense of touch as an example. So this is the structure of senses, the first part. Now let's talk about the function part, how everything fits together and moves and changes to produce the result. And there is one central concept that explains how neurons work. And that concept is shown here. I have a hint for you. What is that concept? Electricity. Good job. Of course, it's electricity. It sounds pretty obvious to us, but it was an amazing discovery about 2 centuries ago that neurons do run on electricity. In fact, they're like little batteries. They can store electrical charge, and then when they're exposed to some stimulus, such as warm temperature, this electric charge starts running along the neuron and along the axon, and we have an electric current in the neuron. But in neuroscience, we have a special word for this, electricity neurons. What is that term? Electricity neurons. It's actually 2 words. You definitely heard that term before. Okay, I'll give you a hint. The first word is action. Action potential. Great job. Yes, it's action potential. I like this term so much. It sounds so powerfully. I'm really surprised why there is no rock band that's called like the Action Potentials. That would be. Do you agree that it would be an awesome name? Well, if you start a rock band, please consider this name. And in fact, electricity is the universal language of our nervous system. Oh, but actually, as I said, this sounds very obvious to us, but it was not always that obvious. For example, there was this guy called Galen in ancient Rome. He was very, very smart. He correctly guessed that the information from our senses is transmitted along the nerves. But instead of electricity, he thought that the signal is carried by animal spirits. Can you imagine this serious-looking guy with a beard? He believed that there are animal spirits flying in our nerves. So you're lucky because now you know that it is electricity that is carrying the signal. Electricity is a universal language of our nervous system, and it's also in our brain. In fact, our brain is just an enormous electrical grid, and we can record that electricity and measure it. And for example, here, one of our teammates, Sarah, is having her electricity in the brain measured by the method called EEG. And here's the activity in her brain. So you can see it's a hot mess in there, but it's not always like that. She's usually okay, and she gives great lectures. Okay, so this is the last slide. Let's finish with this. We talked about the structure of senses, about 3 main elements that I would like you to remember: the receptor, sensory pathways, and the center in the brain. And now that we heard about electricity, I just want to emphasize one point about what is the job of the receptor. One thing that I want you to realize is that the stimuli in the world exist in the form of energy. Everything is energy. When you touch some object, there is a mechanical energy or mechanical force. When there is something warm, there is thermal energy. Light is a form of energy. Sound is a form of energy. So what receptors are doing, although they have very different shapes and forms and sizes, what they do is they transform this energy in the outside world into the language that our nervous system can understand, which is electricity. And we have a special word for this transformation of energy. It's called transduction. Also, I would like you to remember this. This is a central concept of sensory physiology, transduction. And we'll end with that. Just to see if you remember something from our lecture, I have a final question for you. Please vote. The question is, we talked about how neurons have different shapes. What shape do sensory neurons have? And we have 4 options: unipolar, A, B, pseudo-unipolar, C, bipolar, or D, multipolar. I need 3 more answers from you. Maybe your remotes are off. OK, 14 is good. Thank you. Let's stop voting and let's look at the results. Yes, everyone guessed correctly. It's the pseudo-unipolar shape, which is the best from transmitting the signal. And now we will move to exploring one of the senses in greater detail.